Our next speaker this afternoon is Brenda Elsagher. Brenda's journey into speaking was a surprise to her, and she was giving keynotes for 6 years before she even had a business card made. She thought it was amazing that people kept calling her. Within a year of some life-changing medical events, she made out her bucket list, and the first was to become a comedian. Since then, Brenda was voted Twin Cities Funniest Person by Acme Comedy Company and Comedy Club in Minnesota, and became Newsmaker of the Year by the Women's Press. She has since received the Golden Mike Award from the American Cancer Society and the Advocacy to Action Award by GYRIG, Get Your Rear in Gear organization. She's a wife, mother, international speaker, and author of 4 books. If the battle is over, why am I still in uniform? I'd like to buy a bowel, please. Bedpan banter, and it's in the bag and under the covers. Brenda has written humorous columns for medical newsletters, magazines, and writes a weekly blog. Brenda is a native of Minnesota. We'll show you how humor can help us all get through adversity in our lives. She is known for her honest discussion about taboo subjects. Please welcome Brenda Elsagher. Brenda.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for hanging in there this afternoon. I appreciate it. We've had some great speakers, haven't we? Yes. Well, we talked about the bucket list. Have you guys made your bucket list? When I was 39, I wrote out my bucket list after being diagnosed with colorectal cancer. We've heard from 4 cancer survivors, or maybe even 5 so far today, but no one's talked about colorectal cancer. Yes, that is a pain in the butt. Oh, yeah. Anyway, but you know, when you have these goals, you have these bucket list things, to become a comedian was something I'd always been putting off. I thought I wasn't smart enough or pretty enough or young enough, and so I just did it. As soon as I could, I went to my comedy class, I learned about comedy, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is hard. I don't know if I'll ever be as good as Whoopi Goldberg, Carol Burnett, Ellen DeGeneres, but I tried. We had to write our own material. You want to hear the first joke I ever wrote? My son's eyelashes are so long, he gets split ends. It needed help, right? Well, anyway, the class culminated with us entering the Twin Cities Funniest Person contest. And the criteria for that is you could never have been paid to do comedy. So essentially, 150 young punks and me. Nobody was more surprised than me when I won the whole thing. And I got $1,000 for that contest. I told my husband I'd split it with him, so I gave him 50 bucks. That is female calculations, right? You know, like the other night, we had people over for dinner, and there was that one piece of key lime pie left over. And it was yelling my name from inside the refrigerator every time I walked by. Brenda, eat me. Brenda, eat me. And I've been trying to watch it, you know. So if you balance out your life with some exercise, you can have the pie. So I put the leash on the dog. And I took her for a vigorous walk around the island in the kitchen. And then I just sat right down. Female calculations. I tell you. Well, I've been married to the same guy for 23 years. He's originally from Egypt. His name is Bahket. Can you guys say that? Bahket. It's different, isn't it? He says he knows it's difficult to say, so he always says, call me Baggy. One of my friends calls him Ziploc. I remember when he was first coming to the United States to get his PhD. He's standing in line at immigration in Cairo, Egypt. And the guy says, what are you going to do in Minnesota? And he says, I am going to get my PhD. And he says, do you know you're going to Minnesota? It's very cold in Minnesota. And he said, yes, I know that. He says, but I mean, it gets below 0 in Minnesota. And my husband, being the smart man that he is, says, there is no such number. And the guy said, you'll find out. Well, his friend is standing in line next to him, and the friend is all very concerned. Oh, I do not want to go to someplace so cold. Please, please, put me someplace south. And the immigration officer said, we can help you out. He wrote down, South Dakota. It's true. It's true. We are blessed with 2 children as well, and our kids are now at the University of North Dakota because Minnesota isn't cold enough. Oh, we got some graduates. Yes. University of North Dakota. Just wonderful. It just seems like yesterday when my child was just getting out of the car seat and putting him in the seatbelt for the first time. You remember that? They look so little. And I said, John, do you feel all lonely back there? He said, Oh, no, Mom, I've got God on one side and Jesus on the other. Isn't that sweet? You know, and the kid just loved me. I mean, he thought I was the best-looking mother there was, the funniest mother I was. I could do no wrong in this kid's eyes. But then what happened? He became a teenager. And if we were here at night, I bet you and I would be drinking a margarita. Yeah. And he became a teenager. And what happens when they become teenagers? They develop a new language called grunt. Have you heard it? John, you coming home after school today? I am. Are you hungry for something? I am. And somehow, as a mother, we understand our children, and we still long for them to say those three little words we're always saying to them, I love you. Hoping to hear those three little words back, right? I love you. And he said it. I said, I love you. He said, good to know. Anyway, so the kid goes off to college. And I think, okay, he's a good communicator. I understand the grunt language. He'll at least write to me on email once a week, right? Or at least he'll call me once a week. No. The kid, what do? Everything is text. You're right, text. And I noticed he texts in 3-word sentences. Home on Friday, do my laundry, I need money. I learned how to text back really quickly. 3 little words. Good to know. Well, I really like to do a lot of comedy, but I also want to give you a taste of some of the things I do. Lately, I've been talking about things that we can all relate to. Every single person in this room has had something that has been a challenge for you, haven't you? Every single one. We can't get to middle age, and I'll bet you most of us are nearing middle age, or 30s to 5, 40. And you know, you can't get there without some suffering. And we have challenges. And I've figured out, now we heard in the introduction, you know, that I've had a couple challenges. But you know, 3 things I realize that we all have in common. We go through 3 phases. We mope, we hope, we cope. So some people get stuck in that mope phase, right? They get really stuck. I remember when I was diagnosed with colorectal cancer, I was 39 and my kids were 5 and 3. Now, I don't want you to get all hung up on the fact that I was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. I did have to have some life-changing surgery, and it was a moping time when I found out I'm going to have a colostomy for the rest of my life, the bag thing. It was a moping time. But it turned into hope pretty quickly when that doctor said, now that surgery could save your life. Okay? So I started thinking, hey, if I just have to have a bag and I get to live, I'll go for that. And then I started coping with it daily. And I don't want you to get all hung up on this colostomy thing. I just got to tell you, it's not so bad having a colostomy. The only problem is I can't find shoes to match my bag. Well, I guess you can. They just look like crap. Well, I was a little worried when Delta Airlines came out with that 1-bag limit, yes. Anyway, but when I was preparing for this talk today, a story came to mind that I've never told any other crowd. You're going to be the first ones to hear it. And I called up my son and asked him for permission because it involves him, the boy that said, good to know. I called him up and we discussed a time in his life where he really demonstrated mope, hope, and cope to me. Now, the kid loved football. He'd been on the football team since 4th grade. He's now a junior in high school. I mean, the kid loved it. He loved the Tennessee Titans. And one of his favorite teachers loved the Tennessee Titans. The kid had a Tennessee Titans blanket. He had a Tennessee Titans gloves. He had the football. He loved the Tennessee Titans. And the teacher and him were all excited about the Tennessee Titans, and he was a kid that they could give the plays to, and he would tell the teammates. He had more team spirit than anyone I know. Well, I noticed about 8th grade, he started shaving pretty regularly. His voice had changed. He was quite deep in the voice. His shoe size had stayed about the same. Got to his junior year in high school, he didn't make the varsity team. He was 2nd string. The coach kept saying something to him. Well, it'll take some time. My son was 5'4 and a half. His big aspiration was to be a professional football player, and he didn't get to play on the varsity team. So I said, you know, you can go to the doctor and you can have an x-ray done of your growth plates, and you can see if you have a lot of growing left to do. Would you like to do that? And he said, yes, I would. We came home from that. A week later, the letter came. I saw my son grab the letter, read the letter. Tears came to the edge of his eyes. They didn't flow, but they were there. I saw him gulp, and I saw him say to me, well, now I know. I'm going to grow another ½ inch at the most. The next day, my son went to school. He quit the football team. Now, normally I wouldn't support something like that, quitting in the middle of the year. But he told me something. He said, do you remember I was having so much fun watching everyone in the stands? I loved my football team, but I couldn't see the game. The whole varsity was in front of me. He could never even see the game. So he quit. He joined the stands. And I said to him when I talked to him the other night, what was that like for you, that moment in your life? How did you get past that? He said, it changed everything. My aspirations changed. I knew that I couldn't be a professional football player, but I didn't know what was coming up for me. And I think that's what mope, hope, and cope is all about. We figure out what we've got to deal with. We cope with it the best we can. And when I talked about telling the story with him, he said, make sure you tell him that my aspirations changed, and there's no other way in life that I would rather be doing what I'm doing. And the kid just started getting his master's in rehabilitation and human services. He loves to work with adults with disabilities. And I'm a proud mom. And I'm proud for him for being able to move on and teach me. And isn't that what it's all about? We really help each other through mope, hope, and cope in this life, don't we? Thank you so much for staying here and listening to me. I'm grateful for you all. Brenda Elsagher. Bye-bye.